Hi, I'm Cathy from Quilt Beginnings in Dublin, Ohio, and we are back for month 3 of our Kona Skill and Stash Builder quilt. This month we're going to be working on the Flowers by the Brook. We're going to introduce some new components in this month. We've got some quarter square triangles. We've been doing lots of half square triangles and lots of strip piecing for our sashing. So some of that will still play into this quilt, but we're also going to add a new element. So here's our quilt. We have it hanging sideways for you. It's 6 blocks across, 5 blocks down, so you'll make 30 blocks in all. And we have 6 different colors of yellows, so we make 5 of each block. So let's start talking about the math that we're using in this quilt. Many of you are using some other systems like AccuQuilt or triangle paper or some other tools that will help you get these triangles going a little bit better. So I thought that we would just talk about the magic numbers of squares, half square triangles, and quarter square triangles, and really describe what's the difference between those 3 components and the math that goes with them. Anytime we're doing squares and rectangles, I'm sure you know, we use a 1/2 inch seam allowance added for our cutting. So if we want a 2-inch finished square, we're going to cut it at 2.5 inches. If we want a 2.5 by or a 2-inch by 4-inch rectangle, we're going to just add 1/2 inch to each of those dimensions, and then each side would use a 1/4 inch of the seam allowance. When we go to half square triangles, the magic number is 7/8 of an inch. So if we want to do a finished 3-inch triangle, we're going to do 3 7/8 inch cut. So when you're looking at a pattern, you want to know what piece would I use, what finish size do I want for triangle paper or for your AccuQuilt system or for your thangles, whatever it is that you're using to make these units. If you just take away that 7/8 inch, then that'll tell you what the finish size is. So for this one, we go back to a 4-inch half square finished triangle. The quarter square triangle is another dimension, and that's where we make a square and cut it twice on the diagonal. So we shift where the bias is on that piece, and the quarter square triangle, the magic number is 1.25 inches. So if we wanted to do a 2-inch finished quarter square triangle, we would cut our fabric 3.25 inches. We take the 2, add 1.25 inches, and that would get us to 3.25. So this quilt is made of 2-inch finished quarter square triangles, 2-inch finished squares, and then a 4-inch finished half square triangle. Okay, before we get to sewing, let's look at our kit. So here's our kit this month. There's our pattern on the front. You know you need to download the PDF. And then here are all our colors. Just like we've done in all the other months, we put our fabrics in the order that you'll need for them to be sewn in. So we went ahead and made another cheat sheet, just like we have every month. And you just pull out A is the first one, second, third, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. If you got the finishing kit, you'll get that extra 5/8 inch of the final gold, plus you'll get what you need for your background fabric. If not, you will need to go ahead and purchase 2 7/8 yard of a background color of your choice. We just use Kona white this month, which is a very popular color for these Kona block of the month. So, all right, let's pull our kit apart and let's get to sewing. Okay, so we're over at our cutting station, and I'm going to take these are the 6 colors that we use for our all of the stars, and we're going to make 5 blocks with each of these 6 colors. So from each of them, we're going to need to cut 2 4 7/8 inch strips, cutting into some squares, and a 3.25. So let me go ahead and do that. So I need 2. Let me get my pressing mat out of the way. We'll cut 2 4 7/8. You do not need 3. I think the instructions say 3, and you only need 2. So 4 7/8. I'm going to come over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 7/8 is the final tick between my 5 line. There's 1. I'm going to do a second one. 4 7/8. If you can't see, it's easier if I pull the fabric away. And then I need 1 3.25. And a 3.25. Okay, so I'm going to do that from all 6 of my yellow fabrics. After I pull those off, I'm going to cut them into 4 7/8 inch square, and this is what's going to create our half square triangles, because they're only going to be cut once on the diagonal, and they're going to finish at 4 inches, because the magic number for half square triangles is 7/8 of an inch. So I would just line them all up. I can put both together. I'm pulling them back because the selvage again on these fabrics is very deep. So I just like to pull them back so that I cut all that selvage off. And then I'm going to cut 4 7/8 again, the opposite direction to get my square. Come over 4 7/8. And 4 7/8. And I can pull these away if it's easier for you to see. Throw this out. And then these are half square triangles, which means they get cut once on the diagonal. So I'm going to cut, and I'm going to cut. Okay, so that's enough for my 5 blocks. Then I'm going to take my 3 1/4. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull this back, and the 3 1/4, I need to get 10 squares of it. These are going to finish at 2 inches because these are going to be quarter square triangles, which means they're going to be cut twice on the diagonal. And we're going to subtract off that 1 1/4 inch, and it'll finish from 3 1/4 down to 2 inches. So here's 3 1/4. Here's 4 squares. Here's 4 more squares. And then I could open my fabric to get the last 2 squares. I need 10 total. 3 1/4. Okay. And then I'm going to cut these twice on the diagonal. So I just leave them on my mat, go corner to corner, corner to corner, corner to corner, and then back the other direction. Keep it from shifting on you. Quarter. This is my quarter square. Okay, so those are all cut out as well. So for each block this time, all the colors in the block are the same for the quarter and the half square triangles. The only color that's different is the center of the quilt, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, so we've cut our quarter squares and we've cut our half square triangles, but all of the blocks have the exact same center. So rather than cutting, you know me, I don't like cutting these little squares and sewing them to each of these pieces. I would rather make them all at the same time. So this is fabric B. It's the 1/8 inch yard cut that's in your kit. And so I'm going to cut 2 1 1/2 inch strips of it. One of them is going to be for these centers, and the other is going to be for my sashing. In the previous videos, we've shown you how to make these sashings all as one long piece, but in this instance, we just need from here to here. We are still going to have vertical sashing that breaks it up. So I just need to make units, 30 units that are identical, 4 1/2, 1, well, 4 inch finished, 1, and 4 inch finished. So I'll show you that now. So we're over at our cutting station. This is my fabric B. And I need, I believe it's 1 1/2. I always say, what did I always say? Look twice and cut from B, 1 1/2, yep. So I need 2 1 1/2 inch strips. Whoops, don't let your fabric get knocked all around. You can go ahead and, these are pretty clean, these cuts, but you can go ahead and clean off that side if you like. I almost always do. And then I will do 2 1 1/2 inch strips. My fabric's just moving today. Does yours ever move? So just line it back up and cut the second one. Okay. I'm going to need my white to go with it. So I need, for these strips, I need 2 pieces of white. So 2 pieces of white, and then the blue will be in between. And I can get, I need a little bit more than 1 strip. So let me see here. Okay, we have our 2 strips, and it would be great if we could say one of them is going to be allocated to our centers of our blocks and the other one's going to be allocated to our cornerstones. But unfortunately, we need 30 of them in this position and only 20 of them in this position. We can get about 25 or 26 out of one strip, and so I'm going to have to borrow some from the other strip to get all of our center units built. So when I go and cut my 4.5-inch strips, I need 5 of those. 2.5 of them are going to be dedicated to making this unit, and then the rest of them are going to get subcut into these verticals. These will go with a 9.5-inch strip, and you'll see that in your cutting instructions. Lots of little pieces in this quilt. Okay, so let's go back over to the cutting station. So I went ahead and cut 2 of my 4.5-inch strips. You'll need 5 in total. You'll cut 1 on the fold, so I'm just going to work with the one that I cut on the fold. I'm going to cut 1 on the fold. And then the rest of this will get cut into, those aren't the right size. Yeah, they are. The rest of them is going to get cut into 1.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. So I like to just layer them up and layer it. So I'm cutting 4 layers at a time. And you'll do this with 2.5 of your strips. Cut them into 1.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. Okay, you're going to need 60 of those, 2 for each square. So they'll come here. What we just cut was here and here, because this is going to be 1 unit, but we need 2 more pieces to finish out our block. So you'll need 60 total, 2 for each block, and there's 30 blocks. Okay, from our background, we need to cut 5 3¼ inch by the width of fabric strips, and then subcut them into 60 3¼ inch squares. These are going to turn into 1/4 square triangles to match these guys. So I just pulled up one to see it. Here's my 3¼ inch square. I would have a stack of these. I'm going to cut twice on the diagonal. And I need to get 60 squares cut. Okay, so now we need to start putting together our pairs, and we need 20 sets of each of our color combinations. So for 1 block, I need 4 with my color on the right and 4 with my color on the left. Notice that these are not symmetrical. If I sew these together and flip them around, it is not the same as what's up here. So make sure you have it on the left for half of your fabric and on the right for the other half of your pairs together. So let's get these sewn together. Okay, so here we are with our 1/4 square triangles. The bias is actually the short edge of our triangle. You can't really see that. The bias is the short edge of our triangle, and this is actually the straight of grain on the outside, which is going to keep our block a lot more stable. That's why we want to make sure we cut the twice diagonally. Then I'm going to just feed them in. I definitely like a single hole throat plate for this. It keeps that front tip from going down into the machine. And then I'm going to just flip. And so, I remember I'm making 4 units with the yellow on top and 4 units with the white on top. All right, so let's sign. I've got them all sewn for 1 block, and I'm going to press everything to the colored side. So I should have 4 with the colored side on top, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to flip my pile over, and these will point the opposite direction. And the last thing we're going to want to do is trim that little dog ear off. Bring back, grab some scissors, and we're going to just trim this little corner off flush with the yellow. All right, the last thing, we've got our quarter square triangles are pressed and ready to go. The last thing we need to cut is our 2.5-inch squares for the 4 corners of our block, and that's out of our background fabric. We will go ahead and cut 8 2.5-inch strips and subcut them into 120 2.5-inch squares. So I'll just need 4 per block. And now we have our components to put our block corners together. We'll take 4 of our units here. We'll need 4 of these, and then these guys. Let's get them put together. Okay, so now we have our units cut and ready to go to assemble our 4 corners. We're going to do 4 identical units. We're going to have the 2 opposite directions of our quarter square triangles, 1 large half square triangle, and our 2.5-inch cut square. Let's go ahead and just stack these up. We'll put these like this. And then we're going to sew this together this way first, then we'll add this other side, and then we'll flip the whole thing together. We'll be right back. So I am taking the quarter square triangle, I'm putting it along I'm lining up the top corner so it matches my underneath square, and then I'm sewing off the bottom. And it's not going out the V exactly because it's a quarter square, not a half square triangle. So don't be alarmed when your V is not at the bottom. I'll put this one on, then I'm going to press towards my square, and I'll come and add the other side. Let me show you the how it cuts. So you can see it doesn't quite go in the V, it actually is over a little bit when you do your 1/4 inch. So I'm going to go press these towards my square this way. I'll be back. This side needs to go here like this. I think I would go ahead and trim actually. So I would come and trim this corner. I think it's a lot easier to line things up when you don't have this tail hanging out, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that off. And I'm going to trim it square to my square, so a little bit of it's hanging out over the edge. Square to the square. Trim it square to the square. Okay, then when I lay my next side on here, this time I will go through the V because it's up on the other gold. So we'll go in here and come out the bottom. Line my bottom corners up. Lining my bottom corner up. Go in the V. And then I'm going to press towards the square again. Actually, I think this one's going to want to press away from the square better. It's easier that way. I go whatever way is easier. There's our unit. They're looking pretty. And I go ahead and clip one more time, just making it flush. All right, this unit should match up size-wise to this unit. It looks great, so we're just going to flip it over. And I like to put the flat one on top. So I'll just sew these together and we'll be right back. Okay, let's press them. Flip our units apart. Get our iron. I'm going to press towards the large triangle. Oh, these look beautiful. Love that center point. Nice, pretty point there. There we go. And then I would also trim these dog ears. Lots of trimming of triangle points. It's just a lot easier to line things up when you trim off these extra pieces. Okay, so we just made 4 similar, or actually not similar, identical squares for our block, and we need to do our center sashing and then our 2 4.5-inch rectangles that'll join the 2 halves. So we're going to put this together in rows. Let me show you how I cut this apart, and then we've already cut these 2 pieces. To make the cornerstone now, I'm going to just show you a smaller piece. We don't need to sew all of it together. I'm going to cut this in half. Cut this in half. And I'm going to sew this in the middle of these 2. I like working with half strips a lot of times. It just makes the sewing a lot easier. You don't get that big bow in it when you go to press it. So we have our, we've sewn our 4.5-inch strip to our 1.5-inch strip of the cornerstone for the center of our block, and now I'm going to cut them into 1.5-inch strips. We're going to get 28 pieces out of a whole strip. We need 30, so we're going to have to make 2 more, and you can either make them individually or just cut off another little part of your 1.5-inch strip and your 4.5-inch strip. So I'm just going to come across and cut these into 1.5-inch units. It's such a fast way to get these made, rather than having to cut them each individually. And we continue on the length of the fabric. So let's make our block. We have all our pieces. We need 1 for the center. We need these 2, left and right. We need 2 for the center. And I need 2 more for my bottom. And now we're just going to sew these 3 together, these 3 together, and join them to the middle. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my 2 top and bottom rows sewed together. I'm going to press towards my sashing, so towards the white. Oh. And with this, I also press towards the white, so I'll get nice nesting corners when I go to sew it together. This will go one way, and then they'll nest right in the center. All right, 2 more seams and we're done. Here's our final seam. Flip together, match that center. I love that they butt opposite directions. I just keep my finger on it, take it up to the needle, match the next one, and down at the bottom. I think our block is done. Oh, lovely. Whoop, there we go. Nice. Let's do a final press. Okay. Gonna come on back over here. All right, we only have 29 more blocks to go. After you get all your blocks done, you can look at the video we did in month 1 and month 2 if you want to go ahead and put your cornerstones in one fell swoop and make this row all at one time. And then we're going to set these together with our vertical 9.5s. Feel free to put your yellows in whatever order you want. You can follow their pattern. They're very directive if you like being told what to do, or you can make your own arrangement. But I think we had a fun with quarter square triangles this time. And next month, we've got the Irish fade. We're going to go to strip piecing, 9 patches and more 9 patches. Super simple next month. So we'll see you there. Bye.